Tease.
Hello and welcome to another edition of Truth and Rhythm. Brought to you by funkandstuff.net, this is the interview show that gets deep in the pocket with contemporary music's foremost masters of the groove. I am your host, Scott Dr. GX Goldfine, musicologist, creative arts journalist, and multimedia pro. Whether you're watching the video version of this show or the audio-only podcast version, I thank you so much for your continued interest and support in this show. If you enjoy this programming, there are several ways to help support Truth and Rhythm, as well as contribute to further enhancements and expansion, plus get some sweet perks and rewards in the process. First, subscribe to the Funk and Stuff channel on YouTube, which is where Truth and Rhythm lives, and be an advocate by spreading the word among fellow funk, jazz, and R&B music lovers. Second, join Truth and Rhythm's new membership program through Patreon, which features 3 tiers for truth believers, truth seekers, and truth crusaders. You can also submit a direct donation to the cause anytime at funkandstuff.net. At that site, which is loaded with awesome content, you can also purchase the book Everything's on the One, The First Guide of Funk. Shop for official Truth and Rhythm and Funk and Stuff merchandise, and use the Amazon links for all of your online purchases, which allocates a percentage to this show. Sponsorship opportunities are available as well. Contact me directly at scottg@funkandstuff.net. For those of you who go the extra step in supporting the show, you have my heartfelt gratitude for allowing us to continue to shine the light on those special artists whose quest is to find truth in rhythm. Hey, before we get started with today's show, I just want to draw your attention to new merchandise. Funk and Stuff and Truth and Rhythm designs are in, and they look pretty darn cool. So show your support, help support the program, and show off some stylish merchandise and apparel. Only at the Funk and Stuff store. I am pleased to welcome to the Truth and Rhythm Mothership singer, songwriter, producer Kipper Jones. Starting out as a Motown session singer in Los Angeles while still just a teen, he would go on to lead the vastly underappreciated 1980s funk band Tease and collaborate with some of black music's biggest stars. Those successes include spearheading Vanessa Williams' vocal stardom with hits like The Right Stuff and The Comfort Zone, Brandy's I Want to Be Down and Baby, Kenny Lattimore's Never Too Busy, and films like Robert Townsend's The Five Heartbeats. Other artists he has been associated with include Anita Baker, Pendergrass, Teena Marie, Lauryn Hill, Sly Stone, Paul Jackson, Chante Moore, McKnight, Chaka Khan, Tevin Campbell, Boyz II Men, Wayman, Tisdale, and Patti Austin. In all, he has been part of 7 top 20 and 3 number 1 R&B hits. His solo work includes last year's remake of Rose Royce's classic, Wishing on a Star, and he also hosts the No Better With Kipper Jones podcast. Kipper, thank you for joining me. How are you?
Well, I'm obviously too busy to be sitting talking to you right now. No, if I'm doing all that. No, man, I'm wonderful. Thank you so very much, Scott. Appreciate you for having me.
Thank you for being on. You know, it's a long time coming. We were talking before, been a Tease fan for a long time. And so it's great to have you on and to share that story with all the fans out there.
Yeah, man, you're not old enough, bro. That was years ago. That was generations ago, literally. You know, but you know, like I was mentioning in our pre interview piece, those were just great days. There was great music. There was great energy. The way the industry worked. Then, you know, just knowing all the record pool guys and just that whole action, man. It was just a very, very different time. And for you to even mention it and bring it up, it's just like I just want to hug you because like you were there.
Well, we're going to go into some detail with it. So yeah, that's fantastic
Mm.
to get that story because, like I had said, I think the band should have certainly gotten more success and recognition at the time, and we'll talk more about that. Where are you coming to us from today?
I'm in Atlanta. Well, I'm actually in East Point. If anybody knows the Atlanta area, I'm in East Point, Georgia. I live mere blocks away from Mr. Tyler Perry's expansive film studio here. Expansive and getting expansiver.
Wow.
Yeah, he bought the Fort McPherson, which was a Confederate military base here in suburban Atlanta, and it was abandoned and sitting there, and it's like 100 and something acres or more, or something. I don't know, some crazy figure or whatever. But he bought it. The irony is not lost on me that Tyler Perry bought this old Confederate uh, base, military base, and turned it into a thriving, ridiculously popular film studio. When I say popular, Marvel, from what I understand, just rented out 4 of the studios on the lot for the next 2.5 years or something, which is just crazy, but I think it's just wonderful. And I love being in Atlanta. It's just that kind of energy and entertainment, music, film, TV, everything is just really thriving here. And I love it here in Atlanta.
So I know that as far as your music upbringing, you kind of got started with, I had heard French horn and you played some saxophone and yeah. And I'm also a sax player,
Wow, really?
alto.
Yeah, me too. Me too. I
Okay.
was E flat horns. I played alto and baritone. Alto more, of course, because I was probably about this tall and I had a huge afro. So the saxophone was bigger than I was if I played baritone. But yeah, man, I started out as a saxophone player. I mean, the French horn thing is just a fluke and a freak of nature. Even though I played first chair French horn in the Flint Elementary Symphony in fifth and sixth grade. Um, I, my parents divorced. We moved from California to Michigan, and I was in Flint those 3 years, fifth, sixth, and seventh grade. And my mom, she always tried to nurture this creative piece, I think, that she saw in me. And so she had me audition for the orchestra, and I made it. I did and ended up playing, like I said, first chair French horn. I moved back to LA after my mom got her degree. We moved back to California, and I was staying with my grandparents in South Central. Went to the music teacher, and I asked him where the French horns were. He said, "We don't do that here." And so he hands me this case, and he says, "Here, take this home, and learn to play it." And I was like, "We don't have money for this." And he said, "No, I'm not asking you that. Take it home, learn how to play it." It was a brand new Selmer alto saxophone. It's still in the bag in the case. And I started playing. I was so grateful. My grandmother was like angry. She's like, "Don't bring stuff in here. We didn't pay for that." But yeah, I started playing that year. Then we kind of started forming bands. I mentioned that the music we learned, in school kind of also helped establish these bonds. And We started creating bands. We had a band called the Horseman Junior High School Stage Band. Of course, that's how it started. But with players who ended up being, very legendary. Some of them in the industry. Calvin Bernard Roan, is a very respected gospel musician, singer, songwriter. But we were just classmates and just doing our thing, and kind of went from there. Um, and then and then to high school. But high school, I played. I think what happened was we had a gig one time somewhere. The singer didn't show, and I was like, I can, I can sub for him. I mean, if it's okay. And everybody was like, you don't sing. That's not what you do. You play saxophone. And I was like, well, yeah, but I can do it though if you give me a shot. And I think the first song was Telephone Line, Bad
Oh yeah,
Connection.
AWB.
Oh my Lord. And all the girls that were like standing around paying no attention all of a sudden turned around and they were like, and like ran to the stage. And I was like, yeah. And I kind of took my saxophone and put it down. That was it.
That's where you and I totally diverge because I can't sing at all. So I had the saxophone also, but for me in high school, I either could play football or stick with sax, and I went football. So
Yep, there you go.
yeah.
And one of my buddies that was their same choice was sports or music, and a lot of them chose sports because it was the way. So, but
So
yeah.
who are some of your musical heroes and favorites back then?
Oh wow. Um, Larry Graham. Um, I was big into Graham Central Station, and the because we're of a certain age. Back in those days, when we go to the retail outlets, whether it be Tower or Warehouse or whatever it was, it was Tower for me. Tower was like heaven.
Sunset Tower.
The Sunset Tower. I mean, we had one in the South Bay, but it was about Sunset Tower. It was just, because you never even knew who you might run into there. I mean, everybody. It was such an experience. But so on my Grand Central Station albums, there was always their manager's phone number. Is Leslie? Oh God, I can't think of his last name now. Oh, can't think of it. But and his phone number would be on the back of the record. I mean, it's like, no big deal. Who's gonna call, right? Me. That's who I called because I was like, hey, listen. So I'm like a huge fan, and I just love Graham Central Station. And I know I'm only like 14. I don't know what this means, but I would just love to meet Mr. Graham, and I just I love the band, and and Herschel Happiness and Robert Sam and Patrice Banks, and I just, and they kept in touch with me. Every time they come to town, they would always let me know if they were going to be anywhere around. They sent me posters and just all kinds of things, and would always just thank you so much for, reaching out. And that experience now is kind of part of the industry, especially in the DIY model, in the do-it-yourself model. It's really part of like what you have to do, the fan engagement piece. But back then, record companies handled all your PR and your marketing and your publicity and all that kind of stuff, and they didn't give a damn who you were. Mr. Ticket Buyer, just buy the ticket and buy the record and show up and go home. But that piece about them just reaching out to me just meant the world. You talk
That's
about
really
super
cool.
fan, when I finally got a chance to meet Mr. Graham, and it was only 2011, 2012, when I finally actually met him, and I just told him that story, and he just cracked up. He thought it was the funniest thing because he was like, yeah, man, that's kind of why we did it. We really wanted people to get a personal connection with us, and I was like, wow. Well, mission accomplished, because I'm just a sold out Larry Graham fan forever and ever. But I mean, yeah. So it was Larry Graham, Graham Central Station, Average White Band. She's those days. Lots of like rock pop stuff. Steely Dan, Doobies. I loved Eagles. Um, just everything, man. I don't think there was ever a music. I think when I was growing up, I said I didn't like country music because all my friends said they didn't like country music, and I didn't want to be the oddball. Today, I am the total oddball. I love country music, and I don't mind telling anybody to listen.
Did you tend to focus in more on the singers or on the whole band or on certain instruments or the production or
I think because I was in bands, and kind of a lot of times a de facto band leader, um, I really listened to everything. I got really even listening to like a lot of jazz fusion stuff, like Return to Forever, Robin Ford, and the Yellow Jackets, early stuff, um, because all my friends were musicians, and so I listened to what they listened to, and I learned what they learned, and not necessarily um, because at this point I was singing more. Um, so I just learned all the songs and stuff just vocally. Um, Skunk Funk by Brecker Brothers. Just just because I had to listen to that stuff because my friends were listening to it. Um, and it made me a bit of an oddball because singers listen to singers. And I didn't just listen to singers, I listened to a lot of musicians.
but you
You
had to
know,
read music and had some of that training, right?
yeah, uh, we had harmony and theory and stuff in high school. See, again, the lack of when I say that, it just infuriates me that we don't have those sorts of concentrations so available to kids these days. It's just
Yeah, yeah.
it,
I
it
was
is.
glad my son was able to get band. They didn't have it in elementary school here like I had it when I went to school when we went in the 70s.
Mhm.
But middle school he was able to take it up and actually handed down my alto to him. So
Oh, nice,
yeah,
nice.
yeah. Um, so at some point, Kipper, you connected with Motown folks, and how did that come to be? And talk about that a little bit.
Pure serendipity. So at Gardena High School, I think I was in 11th grade. So yeah, a year before my senior year. There was a young lady who I went to school with. Her name was Tamara Ellison, and we were just really good friends and just kind of kicked it a lot, whatever. But she kept telling me, "You got to meet my mom. You got to meet my mom. My mom's a songwriter," and I'm like, "Oh, awesome, great." But she's like, "No, really, you got to meet my mom." And all this time, she's telling her mom, "You got to meet this kid that I go to school with." And her mom's doing the same thing as me. She's like, "Tammy, I don't have time for no kid, whatever." Just yeah. Anyway, Tammy bugged her mother enough that she said, "Fine, have his mother call me, and we'll hook something up." And so they got in touch and went up to their house in the Hollywood Hills. And Tammy's mother is a woman named Marilyn McLeod. And Marilyn McLeod and another woman named Pam Sawyer were a Motown songwriting team. I think their probably biggest hit together was "If There's a Cure for This, I Don't Want It."
Love Hangover.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Love Hangover for Dinah Ross. But they also wrote like "Walk in the Night" for Junior Walker. Um, "You Can't Turn Me Off" for a group called High Energy, who I'm sure you remember.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, so they were a pretty successful songwriting team. And I didn't really pay attention to that until I got to their house. I was like, "Oh shit, she's like really the business." Um, and so I got to the house and went in with my saxophone at the time because again I was in 11th grade, and she was just sitting there playing her Rhodes and smoking a cigarette. She didn't even look at me. She was just, she goes, so you gonna play that thing or what? And I was like, oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. So I put my horn together and I played, and then I sang, but I don't want to bore you
Some
with
Stevie.
my troubles, right? And she's still smoking her cigarette, not looking at me. And so when I got done, she looked at my mom and she goes, so what's he doing tomorrow about 7:30? And my mom's like, so what do you need him to do? So she writes down this address and she goes, have him here tomorrow night, 7:30. And those days, Motown owned these beautiful, full-blown, just top-notch studios. And they were called Sunrise and Sunset over in West Hollywood. And it was the address to the studios. And we went. And the next night was my first night as a Motown demo singer. And that went on for, a year or so, but that was and I had a chance to sit under this machine and just soak it up and just be a fly on the wall, basically.
What was going through your head that first day?
It was too much. It was sensory overload. My mother and my little sister and I showed up there, and you had to go through security at the gate and everything. As soon as we get through into the building, those big doors at Westlake or Hit Factory, these huge studio doors. This big door just swings open, this huge cloud of smoke just like billows out, and this larger than life figure just like bounds out of the room. He sees my little sister who had her finger in a splint, and he goes, oh, hey, little mama, what happened to your hand? She's like, I broke it. And he's like, oh, and he bends down and kisses her hand, and and it's just me, my mom, and my sister, and he goes, hey, y'all got a ticket? And we're like, I'm all in, and my mother's like, all this smoke and whatnot. And so he's like, yeah, come on in, I want you to hear something. And so we go in this studio, and he goes, hey, yeah, so I'm just producing this on this little girl right here. I want y'all to listen. Hey, Teena, come here. And so he introduces her to us. It was Teena Marie.
Wow.
And this big, larger-than-life ass figure is Rick James. And he goes, okay, play a song. And he plays Sucker for Love, which was, they were just working on her record, right? And she's just a little shy. She wasn't really, real engaging or whatever. They're very sweet. And we ended up being the best of friends. And I worked with her, too, at a later date. But, so we heard Sucker for Love, and then I go and work for Marilyn and Pam and learn so much about songwriting and crafting and and Mr. Gordy's method of it ain't really good enough until it's good enough. And I don't even care if that's good enough because I still want them to cut it and see what they end up doing with it, kind of thing. I mean, just this real quality control genius kind of activity, and I got a chance to really soak it up firsthand, man. It was just amazing. Who gets to do that? It was a charm situation, and I will so forever be grateful to Tammy for hooking me up with her mom. Tammy has passed away since, but her son is a wildly successful entity unto himself called Flying Lotus.
Oh yeah. Yes. I know that name from working some with George Clinton.
Yes. So that's Tammy's son. Oh. Interestingly enough, and Marilyn McLeod has a bit of a history as well. Her sister is a woman named Alice Coltrane, who you also may know the name, and she was the wife and legendary partner to John Coltrane. And
wow.
So
what What was like your as a demo singer? What were your duties consist of mostly?
Well, they would come up with these songs, and uh, Pam Sawyer, who I still talk to every now and then. She's a bit of a pistol. She's an English woman, and she would tell me, no, it needs more soul, like more David Ruffin. I need, and I'm like, girl, I'm 15. I don't know David Ruffin. I can't sing like that, But she really was a large part of the reason that I think I ended up being such a soul singer, and always sought out the soul in singers, like David Ruffin or Bobby Womack, Dennis Edwards, Ollie Woodson, Felipe Wynn, my God, whom I just probably my favorite, just go singer. Just when I say go singer, I mean just stand there and just go. He was just amazing. Um, but yeah, Pam would kind of direct me through the song, um, and I'm trying to remember one of the songs. There was this song called "The Most Important Person." You're the most important person in your life. It was the corniest shit I ever heard. But I think Johnny Mathis ended up recording it, if I'm not mistaken. Um, but yeah, I mean, my duties were to just present the song in a way that they could shop the song to, an artist, get it placed somewhere. And so it wasn't to come in and sing the paint off the walls. Don't come in here doing all that. We just need a voice to kind of do what we need done. And I also learned the difference in doing a demo and then doing a full blown production, because a lot of singers, when they hear a song, if it's an outside song or something, they don't want the singer doing all these pyrotechnics and stuff, and they'll be intimidated, like, oh, well, I can't do that. Body Rate, for instance, doesn't even take songs from writers if a female demoed the song. She only wants songs from a male voice because she doesn't even want to compare herself to some other woman kind of thing. I'm not getting into that.
Hmm.
So just, if it's a guy, she'll listen to it. You know, but
Interesting. So how many songs might you do in like a week?
um, probably two, maybe just a couple of songs, like one and a half each visit, and then I would work with them like a couple of nights a week. Because mind you, again, I'm still in the 11th grade. I got homework. I got stuff. Um, school stuff. I was still in marching band. I was still in orchestra. I still had my scholastic duties. Um, but I tell you, just a little aside, one of the greatest things that happened during that time was, one night my mom drove, because she would just drop me off and leave and then come back and get me like 2, 3 hours later or whatever. Um, and one night she dropped me off, and when I got there, um, there was like no buzz. And I mean, it was almost like the lights were out. I'm like, what's going on? And when I walked in the studio, um, Miss Pam was like in tears, and I'm like, what's wrong? Well, they had been working on this piece, on this song called "Pops, We Love You" for Mr. Gordy's dad, because it was going to be his 90th birthday, and they were going to do this big old record release shebang bang, right? With the song was going to feature Diana Ross and Smokey Robinson, Stevie Wonder, no, yeah, Stevie Wonder and Marvin Gaye. And because those are like his kids, basically, right? He passed away. I want to say that this was like the day or two before his birthday,
Hmm.
before his 90th birthday, and everyone was really sad. They were really, really down about it. And so Marilyn goes, "Hey, can your mom just come back and get you? Because we're not going to work tonight. we got to get this record done because now we got to put it out for, his service, basically. And I was like, oh, wow, well, she left. I mean, there's no cell phones. So I had to stay while Diana Ross and Smokey Robinson and Marvin Gaye and Stevie Wonder and Jermaine Jackson and all these other, like, I died and went to soul music.
Like a Motown We Are the World.
Yeah, exactly. And they all came that night to do their piece for this tribute record. And I'm just sitting in the corner like, oh wow.
Wow.
Yeah.
I was just going to ask you about meeting some of those people, and you just mentioned them all. But I was also going to mention, like, I was thinking of everyone that was on Motown then, like the Commodores and
Sure.
the Jacksons and or Jermaine at least.
Yeah. I mean, that night was just that didn't make sense. It just did not make sense. And Miss Ross is just, she's a mother, so she saw me and she's like, what's going on with him and where's his mother? And so Marilyn explained to her that he's just a demo singer and his mom dropped him off, and then she just comes over and she's, oh baby, and she's just a mother, and it was I'm about to cry again, but it was just amazing, just that time. And I'm a big believer in predestination, and God really kind of puts you where you're supposed to be to get what you have to get to go where He's taking you. And it was just an amazing journey that started off with this great big bang. I mean, it's just like, you can't get any bigger than this, right?
Yeah.
And it stays in that wave. Don't get me wrong, there have been some great low moments. And by great, I mean just really, really low. But I mean, by and large, man, it's just stayed in that wave. And it's just a certain vibration, I guess, that I just was following,
What year was that, Kipper?
That would have been 78-ish, 77, somewhere between 77 through 79.
Yeah.
Somewhere.
And that Motown, that was that Crossroads of the World building? Not far from Guitar Center?
That's where the offices were.
Yeah.
But the studio was in West Hollywood, off of Santa Monica Boulevard, and I want to say La Palma, by the Gower Gulch, behind the Gower Gulch. So Santa Monica and Gower behind there.
So I worked for a while pretty close to the Motown offices over at Black Radio Exclusive.
You worked at Black Radio Exclusive?
Yeah, in the late 80s.
So do you know Lance Whitfield?
Yeah.
Yeah. Dear friend of mine.
Okay.
We were in rival bands growing up. He went to Locke High School. We went to Gardena, and they had a band called Ace, and we had a band called Tease. And we were in a Battle of the Bands contest in 1981, and we were the finalists, the two of us.
Was that through K-Day or what station?
KACE 3.9.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. And that stuff is on film. There were film cameras out there recording that stuff. I would love to see that footage. If anybody,
yeah, so would I.
or knows, that has to be some amazing stuff.
Yeah, because I mean, even I was going back and looking for any older Tease footage, period, and I don't see anything on YouTube. There's just a couple of like that one thing that you guys did a little later on, but not in the very beginning.
Yeah, so I have some footage that I've been able to acquire over the years. I have Tease, the 6-man iteration, the first band. We played at the Playboy Club in Century City. You remember that, Joy?
I was a member, yes.
Awesome. Awesome. Okay, so yeah, so we played there, and this was 1983, and I do have that entire performance on video.
Wow,
Uh,
that would be something to see.
yeah.
But let's wind it back for the audience a little bit. So, how did Tease get formed? I mean, you won this battle of the bands, but how did you get that together? And I know there were some precursor bands to that that became
Sure.
Tease.
Sure. There was so Cornelius Mims, Rex Solis, and myself were in a band at that point called Seventh Heaven. And Seventh Heaven was an iteration of what was going on at the time. Those bands had frontline singers, horn section, rhythm section. So it was like 11 people, right? I mean, all those bands, Rose Royce, Brass Construction, you know, you name them. I mean, and that's why a band like, I mean, even LTD, but a band like Commodores was like, they were making out. There was only six of them.
They were lean and
So,
mean for those times.
yeah, they were leading me, baby. So, but yeah, so we in Seventh Heaven, we kind of what happened was is we heard about the KAC concert in the park. We knew about it, and we said we wanted to do it, but we didn't want to do it with the whole band. That's just too much. It's just So under the cover of darkness, we we just kind of abdicated and just said, listen, it's the six of us, and so which was the rhythm section and me. No more horns, no girls, none of that. And we just went lean, mean, funk and roll, and just went for it. So from Seventh Heaven, and Seventh Heaven with an A, not Heaven, but VAN, because our drummer at the time had a van called Seventh Heaven, Heavan, and we named ourselves after his van. So anyway, that's what made us different. Um, so out of that band, Joseph Parson, Cornelius, Rex, and myself, um, we like I said, we just kind of just left, and then there was another band at another rival high school called Morningside High School, and there was a band called Fifth Avenue, which was Darren Durst, Joe Foxworth, and the Organ brothers, Tommy and Derek Organ, drums and guitar, and they are just virtuosic. I mean, just ridiculous. It's like, how old are they? They're not high school kids. They can't play. They're crazy, but they had just graduated from high school as well, and so we made them a proposal. We were like, dude, how about you two get with us, and we just become like a super group. And they went for it, and we went for it, and that became Tease. That was it. As a matter of fact, when we went to enter into the contest, we didn't have a name. Because we were Seventh Heaven, they were Fifth Avenue. We didn't have a name. I don't know if you know a young lady named Nadira Shakur. She sings with Jimmy Buffett. She's been with Buffett for 20 years. But she also does a house music thing. She's a brilliant artist on her own. But anyway, her brother is a dear friend of ours. He was hanging with us that day, and he goes, hey, man, how about Tease? I don't know. I just like that. We were like, fine, we'll go with it. I mean, it was no thought. It was just like, great. And we became Tease. That was our day one, and we've been kicking ass and taking names ever since.
What'd you perform for the contest?
It was funny because we had a couple of original things that Seventh Heaven was doing, and we played them. But Rick James Super Freak was hot at that time, and another band. Oh, as a matter of fact, I think it was Oasis. I think they played it before us. And I specifically remember saying, another band just played this song, but we don't give a damn. And we played it and killed. And I just remember that moment specifically. That's why it's funny when you ask me what we played. I don't know what else we did, but I know that day we did that song and just freaking murdered the stadium. It was crazy.
It was, and what was the venue?
It was they did them at parks, at city parks, and I think this one was at Darby Park in Inglewood, if I'm not mistaken.
Hmm.
Yeah. It was either Darby Park or Compton College, one of those two. But I mean, they just did them at outdoor parks and venues like that.
How much rehearsal did you guys get as a combined unit before you were able to take that on?
Oh, we got it in. We were, and our rehearsals were ridiculous and bothering neighbors and everything. So we didn't have money for XIR and that kind of shit. We had to play. We had to play where we could. You know what I mean? So.
Well, stripping down like that, Kipper, you guys, I mean, because obviously in what Tease became, it was pretty clear to me you guys at least had some influence by groups like The Time. So, and that was a group that, was stripped down and didn't have the horns and so forth. So was that a little bit of a template for you guys, do you think?
Um, every group with that kind of format, and not just in that genre. So groups like Fishbone, Bus Boys. I mean, any rock and roll, whether it was rock and roll or funk or whatever it was. And so musically, we did all of that. I mean, if you remember the first Tease album, it had a lot of funk stuff. It had some new wave kind of ska kind of shit. Oh, I mean, it was crazy. We were all over the map. We were doing the big Gino Vanelli ballad. We would just do whatever musically we felt like we wanted to do. And I think that's another reason why RCA was like, okay, who are they? I have no idea. And I think labels had a problem with us through the history of Tease, not knowing what to do with us, because musically we wanted to do whatever we wanted to do. We just wanted to do music. It didn't really, I mean, yeah, we were the funkiest band on the block. Yeah, we were kind of going to stomp a mud hole in your ass if you came on before us. It was just, God bless you, because our show was killer. But musically, I mean, we just wanted to do whatever we wanted to do.
Winning the contest, though, how did you get connected with Ollie Brown, and how did that record come together for you guys?
Yeah, Ollie was one of the judges at the finals, and he just said, I'm gonna produce y'all. I was like, oh, okay,
Did you know who he was at that point?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I was like, it's fucking Ollie Brown, man. He plays with the Rolling Stones and Stevie Wonder and
Radio, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, and not to mention he's like best friends with Ray Parker. So we ended up, of course, recording our first record at American at Ray's place. So, Ray's like I still call him Uncle Ray. He's like my big bro, But yeah, Ollie was like, not just the producer, but Ollie was really a coach. He coached us into this business. I will always be grateful. He taught me things like, remember, what did he say? Always remember people's names, because like even if you go to the radio station and when you go to the visit, remember the receptionist's name. Remember the security guy's name. Because those are the people that are going to tell the program director, hey, play that guy's record because he remembered me, or I like him, play that record. Remember people's name, and that's always stuck with me, and it's always been a thing about remembering people's names. That's important, and I see the value in it, But just little stuff like that. But his coaching was just it was just great for me in my career. But anyway, he saw us there, signed us to his production company, and then shopped us to everybody in town. When I tell you, we showcased for Larkin Arnold, we showcased for Stevie personally, we showcased for Clive Davis. We showcased for who was that? Was it? No, that wasn't Neil Bogart. It was someone else. But I mean, Ollie put together these brilliant showcase performances. I danced on Soul Train for 2 years. You may not know that. It's a little hidden fact. um,
What years was
and
that? Did you do
that
that?
would have been 80 through 82.
So that
So,
same period.
same period. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Because the band, we weren't really, really doing anything. And I'm like, I always wanted to be on Soul Train anyway. That was like my thing. So yeah. But so for our performances, when we did the showcases, we got anybody who knows Soul Train knows the Asian girl with the hair. You know Cheryl's song, right?
Mm.
Cheryl. So we got Cheryl to come and do this intro piece with me, and she comes in and dances and does her thing, and then the band takes off, right? So, but we had this really cool show, and finally RCA bit, and we did our first record at RCA, and we released in 1983.
And Flash was out before the album, right?
Flash was the first single from the album, but
Oh, the
yeah,
album came out same time, and then.
I think it may have predated it by weeks or so, but I don't think it was any great length of time. Yeah.
Mhm. So, and who wrote Flash?
Okay, so we all did it, the six of us, and that's kind of how it was going. I just did lyric and melody, and we all kind of chimed in how on the rest of it, um, on how the rest of it went. And even if there were like Rex Salas, Rex was playing keyboards at the time, and Rex has gone on to be an incredible music director and songwriter in his own right. But he and I grew up in Carson, California, south of LA. We were writing songs together anyway. We entered even a couple of songwriting competitions, just the two of us. The city of Carson sponsored a songwriting competition, and we won. We submitted 2 songs, and we won first and second place.
Wow.
So, yeah. So I mean, we were really, kind of the main writers. But Ali was convinced that the way to keep the peace in the room is to give everybody equal credit. Um, Something I learned is not necessarily the best thing to do, but you learn, right? You get in and you learn. So the songs you'll see listed like on the album, I think they're all listed like as the six of us wrote them or so.
Wh- what was Ollie like in the studio itself as a producer?
Um, he is a real producer because he's a real musician. Um, I tend to think that these days kids call themselves producers when they're just like what we call beat makers or track guys. You don't know how to actually play anything, and you can't produce a singer through a record. You know what I mean? Because you don't know emotion, you don't know singing, you don't know the wherewithal, what it takes to actually make a record. Ali is a real producer. And so Ali was able to teach us, and Ali worked with real producers like Quincy Jones, whom he introduced us to. Um, and so working with him was wonderful. And then working at Ray's place, and Ray would peek his head in every now and then. It was great. I learned quite a bit from Ali in terms of how to run a session, how to just studio etiquette, just all kinds of things like that.
Hmm. Consummate pro.
Consummate pro, man.
Yeah. Um,
Um, yeah, they just kind of put the record out, and that was kind of it. And I mean, I wasn't mad about it. We recorded a record, and it didn't get shelved. It actually
right.
came out. You know what I mean?
But I mean, I thought Flash was going to be a sizable hit. I mean, I thought it had all the ingredients, and it just, I was really surprised that it didn't take off at that time.
Yeah. I think that at another label, maybe who had a better fix on what it was supposed to do, I think it may have had a chance. But to Frank's point, maybe they just didn't know what they were doing, or something to that effect. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, being in LA, I heard it on the radio. I don't know if it got outside of our market much, but
Exactly. Yeah. Thank God for K-Ace and KJLH, and
yeah, yeah. Um, I didn't mention them, but a couple other bands that came to mind on that first record to me was a little bit of what Slave was doing at the time, especially like in the bass sound, and
Absolutely.
and put the brakes on, baby. Gave me kind of a Barkays, like Traffic Jammer kind of
Right.
vibe.
Right.
Yeah,
No, absolutely. Because those were the sounds that were in the air at that point, right? So I think we kind of have a creative expression that is influenced by the sounds that are in the air at that time. Yeah,
yeah. Well,
and those were in the air.
and those were, if you're gonna pick something out of the air, those are some good things to pick.
Cool.
Yeah. From where I sit, anyway. So that fizzled a little bit, and you guys ended up changing labels. What transpired to get you over to Epic?
So we came to a very amicable parting of the ways with RCA. That wasn't a problem because I think they knew they fumbled too. Um, but leaving Ali was not the easiest thing because I don't think everybody wanted to do that. Um, some people more than others, and that's kind of what happened to bring us from 6 people to 4 people. Um, uh, everybody didn't want to make the split. Some people were just done. They were just done. Everybody's not cut out for this business. Just because you have the talent doesn't mean you have the fortitude for this business. This business, especially in those days, it's different now because you can do the DIY model and build your empire as large or small as you want it, if you're willing to do the work.
Mm-hmm.
But in those days, it wasn't about you being willing to do the work. You sign the contract, you're gonna do the work. But it's just that simple. It's not a lot of wiggle room. But we decided that we wanted to, myself, the Organ Brothers, Chucky Booker, who was always in the, how do we say this? Always in the band, but never in the group. So you'll never see him on an album cover, but he's on every record.
How did you connect with him initially?
Chucky's, again, is from another rival high school. But Chucky was a year or so younger than me. Chucky's my brother. We absolutely love each other. And when Chucky was coming up, his mother was, because he's an only child, his mother, she's not overbearing, but very, very hands-on, very strict. If we had a gig and we wanted Chucky to play, I personally, if Kippy don't come by and speak to Miss Steen and tell her where Chucky's going, then Chucky can't go. And so, I would go, well, if Kippy's going, then yes, and you have to go with him. And he has to come back at this time. And it was very, very, she was very protective of him.
Sounds like my mom.
Awesome. My mother was, I had much more leeway. So Chucky went to San Pedro High, which was also in the South Bay by us, and played in another band called Something Special, with some friends of ours, the Thomas brothers, Terrence and Lewis Thomas. Um, Barry White and Chucky's mom grew up with Barry White and that family, and so Barry is Chucky's godfather. Mr. White was Chucky's godfather, and so Chucky had a lot of musical knowledge from him. But Chucky is, I don't know how well you know him, because he's an amazing human being who is just gifted beyond your wildest imagination. And when I say gifted, he can play any instrument, and he's a freehand artist with his left-handed self. And he's just the sweetest person ever. And he's just an awesome guy. So Chucky, like I said, was always on the periphery. And so he came with us on the Epic ride, and we had that. What happened with that was we were just showcasing. We knew now how to get a record deal, so we set up our own showcases. I set up our own showcases, and I would secure a venue, and I even secured some funding or whatever, and we shopped around, and then Stephen Shockley from Lakeside saw us and said, "Hey man, I want to produce y'all, and I can get you a deal right away." And so we took the meeting, and Larkin Arnold, who was aware of us because we showcased for him the first time before RCA, signed us to Epic. And that process was really different because, Cornelius Mims actually had left as well, and we got Jay Shanklin on bass. Cornelius went off to do his thing. He was playing with George Howard and some other people. But so, whereas Ali was very hands-on, the consummate producer person, Steve Shockley was the total opposite. Steven was like, "Shit, y'all don't need me, so I'm just chilling in here." So it's like, what part of the game is this? Wait a minute, why do we need you? Why are you here? But he got us the deal, and not only did he get us the deal, he was the influence. Well, he wrote Firestarter, which was the first single from the album, and very instrumental in securing the song called "Soft Music," which was one of the first songs written by Babyface that that the deal didn't do, and that he didn't produce. We produced it, and but it was just a very, very different sort of thing. We were still able to bring in our material as we wanted and all of that kind of stuff. But the songs that Stevie brought to the table were amazing. Firestarter was a number 11 record on Billboard, and and Soft Music is still, just people still talk about that song. I remember that Babyface song y'all did. It's like, wow, yeah. But it was just a different experience, that first album.
And that came out in '86, so that was for Shockey, that was towards the end of Solar Records was starting to kind of.
Yes.
Otherwise, I was thinking maybe he would have tried to get you a deal there, but they were sort of getting on the outs there, I imagine.
We took the meeting with Mr. Griffey, and we just didn't think it was a fit for us. I mean, they had a lot of what we were anyway. I mean, they had Lakeside, they had Dynasty, they had Reel to Reel at that time, didn't they? No, Reel to Reel was at Arista.
Midnight Star, yeah.
Yeah, Midnight Star, yeah. It was kind of too much of that same thing over there.
Mm-hmm.
And to your point, Stevie didn't really want to be over there. I don't think he didn't want us to be at Solar. So the Larkin Arnold CBS Epic thing made sense. At that time. There's much more to this great Truth and Rhythm interview.
just continue on to the next part of the episode. Also, be sure to subscribe to this channel. If you've already done so, please share it with friends. And become a member by joining Truth and Rhythm on Patreon or consider donating at funkinstuff.net. Thank you very much.